that you're going to be pushed a lot, you're going to be working a lot. And sometimes you actually need to stretch even more. So with your eyes closed, try to see if you can reach a little higher. Good. Looks very, very good from up here. We want you guys now, when you sit down, I want you to help me in giving a huge round of applause for the next two speakers that we're going to have up here. And I want to welcome Orion Henry onto the stage. And John, you're coming up here later? Okay. Okay, so you know what we do? We do this rock star round of applause. So let's give it up for Orion Henry.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Orion Henry. I'm one of the co-founders of Heroku, and I wanted to talk today a bit about ideas and how I think about them with regard to startups. Well, first, has anyone here actually used Heroku? Anyone? Yeah, awesome. Yes. If you haven't, you should, certainly for small startups, I highly recommend Platform as a Service, whether it's my company or someone else's. They're a wonderful tool for getting a company off the ground. It saves you a ton of time. This is just one sec. It's not started in 2007, sold it in 2011. Stumbled across Platform as a Service as we were building it. I'm going to be referencing it a little bit as we go through, but in any case, next slide. Hello. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about, first I just wanted to congratulate you guys for being here. There's never been a better time to make a startup. And I'm really proud of all you guys for being here, and I'm a little bit envious. We didn't have, the Lean Startup, we didn't have conferences like this when we got going. The Y Combinator was brand new. We got into it, and it was a wonderful tool. And you guys have so many mentors now, and so many books to refer to, and there's never been a better time. And internationally, it's so exciting to me because still a lot of activities happening in Silicon Valley, but now with the internet and with all these things happening, borders are mattering less and less, and borders are ceasing to matter, and that's really, really cool. I can't wait to see the first Facebook or the first Twitter emerge from an international effort, and I'm really, really excited to see so many people, so many different companies here. The beauty of this is that all you need is a dream, a laptop, and a coffee shop with a good internet connection to build a business, and that's really, really exciting. So, anyways, you have so many good ideas. Thanks to Roger's talk, I'm sure everybody here has 10 amazing ideas they're just dying to implement, and you just don't know which one to pick. Everyone has lots and lots of ideas? Well, just here to make your job a little harder. But I wanted to talk a little bit about a different angle to vet those ideas by. Roger had some fantastic ways for digging into markets and digging into economies and figuring out good places to start ideas. But I have a slightly different angle on it that I want to take for sort of how I personally go about vetting those, how I have developed my entrepreneurial compass. And everyone here is going to have a different way to do it. I'm going to share my way of doing it with you and hope that there's some good insights there and help you develop your own. But one of the things that is a focus of this talk is that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And he brought that up when he pointed out how many years of your youth you're going to put into a startup. And it's true, it's a long run. And the idea you pick there's the elements of execution, there's the elements of getting the right time, but there's also elements of is it inspiring enough to you personally that you're going to stick with it through the difficult times when things don't look like they're working, and through the hard times, and you're gonna be inspired enough to get to the end. So, anyways, I want to talk about three aspects of an idea on a very high level. One of them is money. This is one that everyone knows about very, very easily. How much money can you make? How big is your market? How profitable is it going to be? This is usually the first thing people are talking about with startup ideas. But there's two other really, really important elements that I want to bring to bear. One of them is passion. Passion is your personal investment, your personal emotional investment in the idea. Does the idea make money? Hopefully it does. Are you personally passionate about it? And I think this is a really important one to bring up that not a lot of people address, because if you are not passionate about an idea, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to stick through to the end and see the idea to completion. You're probably more likely to make a lot of money about an idea that you're passionate about that isn't necessarily a big moneymaker than an idea that's a big moneymaker that you're not passionate about. And then the third is change. And this is another one I don't see people talk about a lot. But we as entrepreneurs, we're building the future. The better tomorrow happens largely because of the innovations and the cool ideas that we come up with that shapes how people interact and how the world happens. And there's a subtle bit of obligation that we have as we're building these things out to try to make the world a better place as we do it. And also that vision of changing the world, of building a better world through our companies, also helps motivate you. When you are having a hard time and the company is dragging and the ideas aren't clicking, remembering the lives that are going to be made better by your idea is a huge motivator to help you push through this marathon. So a good idea, I believe, is at the intersection of these 3 points. And not every idea is going to be in the intersection of these 3 points. You may not have access to an idea like that, and you may have to make decisions of like, well, I've got this idea that's a great moneymaker, but I'm not passionate about it, or this idea that provides great change, but we can't make money off of it. And you may have to make compromises at some point. In my personal opinion, if you have to make compromises on this, that passion is king. That whatever you do, don't sacrifice being passionate about the idea. Now if maybe for some of you, you are passionate about money, in which case you've got 2 bases covered, no problem. But for most people, it's a little more complicated than that. And I want to always stress that passion is so important when you're vetting your ideas. So Twitter is an example of a company that I think just nailed this, absolutely nailed this. I was friends with some of the very early Twitter engineers. I got to watch the company grow up adjacent to it. And Twitter is one of those things where at the most simple level, MVP, we're going to send messages to people. It's going to be this little pub sub network. It's super simple. And it's very easy to pitch. It's very easy to understand. The MVP is very simple. And it's very easy to be passionate about, because giving people a voice and allowing them to communicate is something that's very passionate. But did they realize how much social change this thing was capable of producing? Did they sit down when they were a little startup with 5 people and talk about the potential for an Arab Spring? Like, I don't know, but I bet they did. Almost every startup I know that's been really successful, they had the grand vision from the very beginning that they maybe didn't necessarily share, but was part of the inspiration that made them really excited to do what they're doing. And if we could all make a Twitter, that would be freaking phenomenal. And I like to imagine sometimes like a better world that has a lot of the big problems solved, and imagine what kind of cool software would be in that world to allow that to happen, and then back extrapolate to now and think of a simple little thing I could build that would go out like that. What a thing that would be for us to all build a Twitter. So we all know what an MVP is, minimum viable product, and I want to bring up the opposite of an MVP, which is, what about your BHAG? This is, I can't remember who made this term up, but a BHAG is a big, hairy, audacious goal. It's your grand vision for changing the world. It's the exact opposite of an MVP. The reason that a BHAG is important is that it's that distant marker on the horizon that sort of gives you perspective. And when I've seen a lot of startups where they start off with a cool idea, they go and they validate, they find out that, oh my God, we need to pivot, and then they pivot into something that has maybe better market traction, but isn't interesting to them. And then what have they done now? They've just gone into something that's viable but isn't passionate, and they've screwed themselves. Where you have a lot of opportunities to pivot, and you have a lot of opportunities to make important decisions, but if you can remember what your big distant goal is, you can remember what your big hairy audacious goal is, it's going to help guide those choices and allow you to make the right pivots and make the right decisions as you go forward and keep you on course. So, next slide. So comparing ideas. We have all these ideas, we're trying to sift through them. I've already talked about the BHAG and the passion, but there's a couple of other criteria that I like to run ideas through that some of you've heard before, some I haven't heard anyone bring up. But one of them is, the easiest one is, what's the size of the addressable marketplace? This is one that everyone talks about. And given 2 ideas that are of otherwise equal, you look at the addressable market size. Some have really big, some have really small. A lot of people don't think about that, and they'll jump into an idea that's interesting or maybe they're passionate about, but there isn't much of a marketplace. But the slightly more nuanced ones would be like, can you make money quickly? There's a lot of ideas where it might take you 12 months, 18 months, 24 months to get to the point where you can start making money. A really exciting idea, all things being equal, would be an idea that you could leverage into income very quickly, that you can bootstrap, you can start to pay your rent and buy your ramen. That's a really good thing, and I've seen a lot of ideas languish because they took too long to get to market. Now, I'm guilty of that. Our startup, Heroku, we took 18 months before we started charging customers. The whole time we were thinking, oh man, yeah, we got a bunch of VC, just we'll take care of it later, we'll take care of it later, make the product better. But there's so much to our business that had to do with the actual acquisition of money from customers that it really bit us that we waited that long. Like even if we were just taking small amounts of money for innocuous things much earlier on, it would have helped develop our product, it would have helped keep us on course, and it would have given us better negotiating chips when we're at the table with the VCs. So definitely lean towards ideas that are quicker to get to market. Does it draw from experiential pain? Now, this is a big one, because a lot of you I've heard, when you're struggling for various ideas, you're looking for pain, you're looking for a problem, you want to solve that problem. It really helps if that problem is personal. That if you're trying to fix a problem that you personally have experienced the pain on. And the reason being is that if you're looking over a fence and you see someone else's problem and you're like, oh, I'm going to write software to fix that problem, it's really hard to do that right if you haven't experienced that pain. It's really hard to internalize that problem and come up with the perfect solution unless you've been at the other end of it. And this is one of those things where it really helps to have, had that job where you worked in that industry in the shipping yard for a year, and you've seen just what a mess everything is, and you're like, oh my God, how do these people do business? This is so painful to watch. If only someone would make a product to make this better. And anytime you're out in business and you experience something that is just terrible, relish that, because that terrible experience is a wonderful business idea. And definitely, given the choice, lean towards a business that you have experiential pain in. Who are the gatekeepers? This is something I don't see anyone ask, and I think this is a really important thing, and it causes a lot of people to jump into startups that are largely doomed. You want as few gatekeepers as possible when you're building a business. And the gatekeepers are those institutions, organizations, or people that in and of themselves have the ability to shut you down and prevent you from being successful. And examples would be, for instance, government regulators is a really common one. Standards bodies, IP owners, credit card networks, banking regulators, monopoly service providers, and proprietary closed source products. Now, potentially all of these things could block you. You want to have as few of these things in your way as possible. Now, sometimes you do, but you want to assess if they're going to be a problem as early as possible. How quickly can you determine if you can get past the government regulators? If that's 2 years out, that's a big problem. If within 3 to 6 months, if you can get certified, you can get past these regulations, it's much better, because you don't want to have a year or 2 years of your work sunk because some gatekeeper isn't going to let you through. So find ways to work around these. Find business ideas that aren't dependent on other people to allow you to succeed. And then the difference, in my mind, between a gatekeeper and just a regular external risk is if that external party says, no, we don't want you to succeed, can you build around them? Can you go to another vendor? Can you build the software yourself? Is there some way to get around it? And if there isn't, it's a gatekeeper, and you have to be very cautious. Can you go deep but narrow? This was something that Paul Graham always used to talk to us about when we were in YC, and it's something I don't think is talked about widely enough. But when you're addressing your market, can you take a small number of people and make them love the crap out of you? You're going to do much better than if you make everybody like you a little bit. Because if everybody likes you a little bit, no one's going to get off their butt to talk about your product, no one's going to get off their butt to pay for your product. But if you can get a small vocal minority that absolutely loves you, it's very easy to build out from there. And some startup ideas have ways to go deep but narrow, and some don't. Given the choice, I would pick one that allows you to go deep but narrow, so you can start off with that market of rabid fans that absolutely loves you, and then you can build off of that base, rather than trying to get everyone on board at once through a half measure. Another thing I always like to look at, and this is a fun one, is what is destroyed. In the global marketplace, it's full. It's full of markets, it's full of ideas, it's full of jobs, it's full of companies, but if you're going to make a new company, if you're going to set up shop and do something, you have to destroy something to make room for you. You have to put some other company out of business. You have to stop something that's going on in order to make room for your new thing. And it's really interesting to stop and look and see what you're destroying. And for me, I find it much more exciting if you're destroying something big, if you're knocking down a big institution, if you're upending a big organization. It's very exciting. Now let's imagine hypothetically there's a business that's doing $10 billion of business, and you have a clever idea that can solve all the same needs for $1 billion instead. And you go in and you are going to destabilize that market, and then you're going to shrink it down to a smaller market, but so that you're effectively destroying $9 billion of marketplace activity for your smaller business. That's exciting. Those $9 billion is extra money people have to spend on other things. That's extra time and energy that people can focus on other things. You've just made the whole world $9 billion richer by taking out that old institution that was inefficient. And it also means that you were threatening a $10 billion industry, and if you start to get successful and you start to make progress, they're going to get scared and they're going to want to acquire you and they're going to want to pay a ridiculous sum of money to get you. So certainly, given two ideas, the one that destroys the bigger market, that upends the most companies and shoves the most money around, should you be very successful, is more interesting. And lastly, who is empowered? And your product is going to hopefully allow someone out there, some group of people out there, to be more powerful than they were otherwise. It's going to let them do things they couldn't do otherwise. For us at Heroku, we wanted to empower the domain expert. We kept going into businesses, and there was always that person who was an expert in their field. They knew what they were doing. They were running the business, but they were utterly dependent on the IT department and a bunch of external contractors to build things for them and set up servers for them and organize things for them. And they were powerless victims in the face of these contractors and IT departments. And we wanted to give them the tools to do it themselves so they could build what they needed on their own and not be blocked by all these external dependencies. And that was the group that we wanted to empower. We wanted to alleviate the need for all these IT departments and for all these NOCs and for all these outside consultants, and empower these people to do more. And I definitely want to encourage you to look to see who you empower with your ideas. It's certainly, if you're empowering more people or a small group of people more intensely than another idea, big win. I highly recommend doing that. So those are the criteria I usually go through, and they're more of an emotional criteria for like what gets me excited, what makes me really, really excited to wake up in the morning and to work on an idea. But there's a flip side to the marathon I want to talk about as well. So it's beware of tunnel vision. I see a lot of people in startups do this, and you guys are young and you have lots of energy and you're just getting into this, and a really easy thing to do is that once you get your idea and once you start working on your product, you're working 16, 17, 18 hours a day, and you're just in it deep and hard, and you're pushing, and that's great. You can kick out products so fast, and you can get so much done, but I just want to remind you that it is a marathon. It's not a sprint. You can do a lot, sprints are fun, getting deadlines in is fun, but you have to pace yourselves. You have to remember to break out of that mode from time to time. And because this isn't something that we do for 3 months or 6 months or a year, this is hopefully a career. It's something that we're going to be doing for decades. So, with regard to the tunnel vision, I want to remind you to feed your mind. Take time out from not just working on your product and not just putting in the crazy hours, but to take time out to enrich yourself and enrich your mind, to read books, to study, and to try to make yourself wiser and smarter. There's books about business and economics and philosophy and science and self-improvement that you can read to keep yourself enriched. If you go 5 years and you haven't been doing this stuff and you have the same level of knowledge of these things that you had in high school or in college, you're going to be stunted to where you could be otherwise. And it's easy to drop this kind of stuff because you're so busy with your company and you're so focused, but it is important. You want to stay plugged in. You want to stay in a state of perpetual growth and perpetual self-enrichment. Also, stay healthy. I cannot tell you the number of people I know in startups that put in those insane 100-hour weeks, week after week, month after month, year after year. They weren't eating right. They weren't taking time to get proper sleep. They weren't exercising. And here's the thing that I didn't realize, and a lot of people don't realize, is that your mental health and your physical health are the same, because your mind and your body are all connected. You're not going to be as intelligent. You're not going to be as sharp. You're not going to be as good of a coder. You're not going to be as clever of a business person if you allow your health to falter. If you want to be the best hacker or the best leader or the best business person you can, take care of your body, exercise, eat good food, be good to yourself, and it will have positive effects on everything else. Yeah, you can ignore that stuff for a while, but it will bite you in your ass if you ignore it for too long. Keep up with industry trends. The world will change while you're hacking. If your head's down, you're working on your project, and you're not paying attention to what's going on outside of your business, the world will change and you will be left behind. Now, at Heroku, we were building a platform as a service. We were building a way to host and run web applications. And so, meanwhile, at Heroku, a bunch of things changed. So and this is three and a half years we did this. 3.5 years, these are the things that happened. iPhone apps happened. There weren't iPhone apps when we got started. Android, the whole mobile app space didn't exist, but was a big deal by the end of that 3 years. The Go programming language, my favorite language now and the perfect fit for building the kind of things we're building, didn't exist. My life would have been so much easier if this was around. Node.js happened, highly concurrent web applications, client server, same language, holy crap, WebSockets, that didn't happen. Speedy, oh my God, NoSQL, the whole NoSQL revolution, Redis and Cassandra and everything else, MongoDB all happened. LXC containers, Docker.io. And the whole cornucopia of JavaScript libraries from Backbone, JS, none of these things existed when we got started. All of them had a dramatic effect on our business. If we were not paying attention, if we're not aware of these things, we would have been left in the dust. We had to stay abreast. We had to stay abreast of these changes as they happened. So think about that with you and your business. When you guys are going over the next 5 years, what's going to change? And you got to pay attention. Now, I'm just going to imagine off the top of my head some things that might change and might affect your business. And I mean, first, like, look at this list. Do you guys know what everything is on this list? If you're technical, I hope you at least know what all this stuff is. If you don't, make a list and at least study up, because all this stuff, if you're doing web applications, is very, very relevant. But that's 3 years ago. So at your startup, a bunch of stuff may or may not happen. I'm just going to take a wild guess. I'm going to go into a crystal ball here and say, okay, NACL versus ASM.js versus Dart. One of these three things is going to change the way forever that browser applications are built and delivered. Are you aware of this fight that's happening? You might be, you might not be. I don't know, but you should, because if you're not paying attention, it's going to happen. It's going to hit you. HTTP 2.0 and Speedy are about to happen. Bitcoins are happening. And if you're in the right business, this could be a dramatic thing to affect what's going on. Or huge business opportunities. The rise of the ARM64 architecture. The 64-core CPUs are going to start to happen. And single-threaded applications or reactor-based languages are going to take a serious hit. GPU is probably going to go mainstream in the next 5 years. 90% of the computing power on a computer is locked away inside of a GPU that no one can use without really, really specialized tools. But as soon as that's accessible, the person who knows how to leverage it is going to do a lot of powerful things. There's going to be massive global uptake of LTE and 5G when 5G eventually comes out, and that's going to change the kind of apps that you can deliver and the kind of platforms that you can build. There's going to be spectrum crunch. We're going to run out of bandwidth and radio waves that we can use to transmit wireless data. There's going to be the end of Moore's Law probably in the next 5 or 10 years, maybe 15, but when it does happen, the people who aren't prepared for dealing with how that's going to change markets and how it's going to change the cost of delivering goods and the way you plan into the future are going to get caught flat-footed and they're going to get run over. And escalating need for cryptography and privacy because of lots of recent events. But, and these are just things I'm pulling off the top of my head that may or may not conflict with the businesses that you're building, and there's 30 more things that none of us know because they haven't happened yet, but you got to pay attention in order to adjust as you build your company. And if you get the tunnel vision, you're going to miss it all. And ultimately what you want to do is you want to be able to tap into the zeitgeist. The zeitgeist is that spirit of the times. It's that essence of the era that someone lives in. And when you're reading history books, the zeitgeist is so obvious because historians have had decades to examine and read and learn and kind of distill something down to its essence and put it in a history book. But for the times right now, no one's done that yet. We're still trying to figure out what the spirit of our own times is. And if you're plugged in and if you're paying attention and if you can get a sense of what the zeitgeist is before everyone else, you can help shape it and you can help move to get in front of it. And it will dramatically help your ability to run your business. You can't put blinders on. You can't ignore the world around you and get too overly focused on what you're doing. And it'll help you with the timing of your business. It'll help you with knowing the direction of where you're going. And it's a very ephemeral thing, but it's the emergence of paying attention, staying plugged in, talking to people, and being a part of the conversation that is business and technology moving forward. A favorite quote of mine from Paul Graham is that being early is the same as being wrong. Roger talked about that in the previous one, where the value of your idea and the time for that idea happening. And then another one from Mark Andreessen was the best way to be a leader is to jump in front of a parade, but you have to know where the parade is happening. So that's basically it. I wanted to talk about motivations, ways to vet ideas, and things to look out for here. But in review, on the last slide, this is just a quick summary of everything. What I wanted to encourage you to do for the exercise is take 4 or 5 things off this list and just look at your idea and see if it lines up with how it lines up with what you're doing. The ones that I would recommend is the BHAG. I would recommend that everybody sit down and figure out what the big audacious goal for your company is. And these things are really good if you understand your BHAG for crafting your story and your pitch and things like that. It obviously can't be front and center because you're not going to say that we're going to change everything in vast ways. You have to be able to talk in concrete terms in the short term, but it's nice to be able to have your BHAG to reference where your vision is so that the investors and people talking to you know that you have grand vision and know you are going in some big direction as you build out. Another one is addressable market size. You guys should have at least had a conversation about that. who the gatekeepers are in your industry, if you have any, and then who is empowered and what is destroyed in your industry. Those are really fun ones to craft your story around and your message around your idea. So anyhow, that's that. And I just wanted to say you guys are awesome. And if anybody wants to throw gnarly technical problems at me, I love those. I can't really do it in a way like this because everyone's gnarly technical problems are different. But feel free to grab me if you see me around, and I'd love to chat. All right.
Ryan, thank you very much. How about another round of applause for Ryan? Thank you very much.